Hello, everyone. This is Coach Mike Ronchetti, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. It's my pleasure to welcome Wendy Puffer to this show. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, how are you doing, Mike?
Excellent. It's been a beautiful day, and I'm sure we're going to have a beautiful conversation. I'm looking forward to this. This is neat. You have an incredible story to tell, and I want to hear about it. So let's start with you introducing yourself. Tell us a bit about your personal story, where you're born, where you live, your family, your hobbies. And I always like to ask, tell me something funny that the family likes to remember you about.
Funny, embarrassing, but well, my name's Wendy Puffer. I am a trained interior designer, a licensed interior designer. I was born in Seoul, Korea, in 1960, so I'm 65, almost 65 years old. And it was at that period of time when a lot of babies were being adopted. So I was put on the front row of the plane with about 5 or 6 other babies. And we knew that our destination, and the stewardesses would watch over us. We knew our destination on the other end would be meeting some parents, and there would be several parents out there at the end of the gate with empty diaper bags ready to take home a baby. It was before the days when you had to travel to the country to get to know them, and they just kind of sent us over here. So I was adopted in when I was 11 months old, and I'm Korean. Uh, Adopted into an American family, and then they continue to adopt another uh, 4 more kids. So there's 6 of us. 5 of us are adopted, 3 from Korea, 2 are biracial, and so we kind of grew up in an unusual family. Um, but it also gave me a unique perspective of the world because I never felt like I totally fit within one of those, either Korean or American. Um, and so that kind of helped me approach the world in a very different way. So I grew up in Terre Haute, Indiana, and for most of my life. Went to school at Indiana State University. Went on to work with a nonprofit called Crew, and that's where I met my husband. And we continued to work outside of Chicago. Then he took a job at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion, and that's what took us there. We thought it'd be 1 year, but that ended up being, now 30 years. We've raised our kids there. It's a small town of about 20,000 people or 29,000 people, and it's been a great run. I love living in Marion, and I get to do so many unique things through my training with design and teaching. So it's been a lot of fun.
Any hobbies there or funny stories? I'm waiting for those two.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. So, I received my training in interior design, and then my master's in interior design, and then my MFA in design thinking. And so, a lot of what I've done through my work has become my hobbies.
Mm.
I love doing things that help empower other people to do things that they may not have discovered that they were made to be. And so I've discovered that through design, I love how design empowers people to do things even better than they thought they could. So that's a lot of how I use my hobbies. That might show up in just gathering people together and helping them come up with ideas together, or creating things myself. I am an artist myself, so I love making things like maps in creative ways to identify placemaking and spaces where people can gather. Um, I love listening to podcasts and learning. I'm a learner, and so as an educator, and I began teaching at Indiana Wesleyan University as well in design. So I've always loved education and teaching others how to learn and kind of pull in information. Funny stories. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but one that doesn't have anything to do um, with hobbies or anything like that, but I think it kind of reflects the way that I approach the world. Is about 5 years ago, I had to have foot surgery, so I had one of those knee scooters, if you've ever seen those
Yeah.
before. And I was in Philly with my family, touring different places around the city, and I hit a bump and totally fell on the ground, did a flip, and then just kind of jumped back on the cart and just kept going. And that kind of reflects my personality. It's like I'm not one to, I can deal with a lot of pain. I can just keep going, and I have a particular kind of a drive to keep moving forward and really enjoy it. So I don't know if that's stubbornness or if that is a stick to itiveness, but that would be one thing that I think about.
Oh, wonderful quality to have, that ability to be consistently, looking forward and finding the next opportunity too. That's neat.
Mhm.
Congratulations. Kind of leading to, I think, what we're talking about today is businesses and how business came about. In your case, I think you have some stories there. How did the main business that you run now came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could actually own that business?
Good question. I taught at Indian Wesleyan from 2007 on and launched an interior design business because it was the most requested major at the university. So I
Hmm.
wrote the program. We ran that program for 7 years, but adjusted to design for social impact because the world was changing so much in the sense that we wanted to use design and placemaking to help activate people and the needs that they had. So I went back to school and got an MFA in design thinking, and part of my thesis was doing some research on how universities impact small rural downtowns and what possible impact they can have. And so for summer, one of the at that time the new mayor requested that the design faculty design a new logo for the city of Marion. And at that time, Marion was not a city that was very proud of who it was. It had gone through the typical economic downturn of many manufacturing cities. And so it was going to be a tough project. But we spent that summer with 17 volunteer students in a vacant downtown bank in Marion, doing research with the city, with the residents, inviting them in for lunch with money that we didn't have, but people just donated money and food for us to serve people. And we asked them to come in and give us their take on what they thought Marion was. And so we asked them, as we were serving them pizza, could you just tell us all the words that you can think of when you think of Mount Marion? And so they each wrote a word on Post-it notes. And by the end of that summer, we had thousands of Post-it notes blanketed across the glass walls of the bank. And we clustered those together to discover that Marion, what the problem was, and that Marion is a full and capable community, but it's misperceived, segmented, and underrealized. And
Hmm.
so with our understanding of that problem, we were able to really tackle the request to create a logo for the city based off of a growth. Like we're not at a place where we want to be, but we know where we want to go. And so that summer project ended up, lasting much longer than one summer. And we continued to have interns doing business under the arm of Indiana Wesleyan. But in 2021, we were ready to go farther and bigger than what the university was ready for us to do. So we were continuing to do projects for the city. We were doing graphic design. We were engaging more nonprofits and businesses to do graphic design and interior design services. So at that time, I talked to a consultant who consulted a lot of nonprofits because I was trying to decide if we should be a nonprofit or a business. And as I was speaking to her, she said, well, if you're going to be a nonprofit, know that you'll be spending most of your time raising money to conduct the business. But you have a product that you can sell, your graphic design services.
Mhm.
So why not turn it into a business? And that made complete sense to me. The challenge though was that I literally said many times myself, I don't want to run a graphic design business. I just knew, to me that felt like, okay, I'm going to be sitting in front of a computer all day. That's not what brings me joy.
Yeah.
Um, but when I knew that I could use design and graphic design to empower people and bring them into the space and talk with them and get to know them and build relationships, then knowing that I could call it a social design firm, and it becomes something bigger than just graphic design, was much more inspiring to me. So that's when we launched our business in May of 2021, and we've been going ever since. And at that time, we were kind of squatting in different locations downtown. People would let us stay
Mhm.
there for free. So we were at the library, in a building from the library. we were at a coaching business, we were at an empty bank and the back of a retail store. But eventually, this whole time, we were speaking to a business owner who really saw the vision of what we were trying to accomplish. And he said, I want to donate money to buy a building and renovate it for you guys. For 5 years, he spent trying to give this money away to try and find a building for us. And it wasn't until 2023 that we got a building, renovated it, and have been in this facility for about 18 months now. So now we're in a building that is an art gallery. It's called the Kennedy Art Center, and we curate and run the art shows, and we also conduct our business inside of it. So we get the best of both worlds because people will just wander in the door who wouldn't come in just for design business, but they come in for the art gallery. And then we are also able to meet our clients here. So it's been a fantastic run, and it went from being a business of myself plus interns to, well, actually a couple of us plus interns to now I have a whole design team of about 8 people who work with me. So it's been a really, really great run.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for that great story about how the Marion Design Company was formed here. It's just, in fact, anybody watching or listening today, check out the companies in the link below on our website here, as well as look at the description and comments on the LinkedIn so that what you thought of the interview. But again, their website is just a wonderful website, so please check that out for us.
Yeah.
Let's move on a little bit more to kind of, I guess, the motivation. Something where, what gave you this push, and you gave us a little story about that. But share a story of someone who pushed or inspired you that you could do it, and the impact that they had on that. I mean, maybe there's one particular moment or impact, or maybe not. Just tell me what you're thinking.
Sure. Yeah. Well, with growing up in a family of 6 kids, I was a pretty quiet kid. And so I often would not express my own opinion. I was a people pleaser. And I just didn't think I had that much to say. So I just wouldn't say it. But in college, someone took me under their wing. Her name was Becky, and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And she would put me in positions where I had to speak in front of people. And I was terrified, for that, because I didn't know how to speak because I had not practiced it much my whole life. And I didn't think I had much to say. But it was at that moment when she took me under my wing and taught me under her wing and taught me how to speak in front of people and let me make mistakes and didn't judge me when I failed, that gave me the courage to do that. And then when my kids were young and I was finishing up my master's in interior design, I was approached sitting on the side of the soccer field watching my kids from a professor at the university, and he asked me to teach design. And I'm like, I never saw myself as a teacher. But I said yes, because I thought I'm kind of curious. And to be honest, I taught for 21 years. I never felt like it was a natural fit for me. I had to work extra hard to teach because it just was, I always had to over prepare because I never felt prepared. But for some reason, I stuck with that job because I felt like I could make an impact in the students' lives. So I've always loved working with college students. But when I look back at those years, I feel like all those years trained me to do what I'm doing now, to have the confidence to run a business. And I've always kind of depended on others to tell me where that confidence comes from, if that makes sense. Like, in other words, the gauge for me is always the position I expect myself to be in to help others. And sometimes that's alongside them, and sometimes that's leading them. And when I feel like I'm most helpful is when I position myself in those places where I feel like the people I'm with need me.
Yeah, yeah. That's remarkable that you come to that discovery, as well as it wasn't a quick path. It wasn't like suddenly one day you basically said, I want to start a business. No, you kind of, like you said, matured into it, as well as confidence building. So that's great. So now you've been a business owner for a few years here, 3 or 4 years. What's your biggest learning as that business owner?
Um, well, let's see. Good question. That there are, I think my biggest learning, at least where I'm at now, is because I feel like it changes every year. Um, but my biggest
Perpetual
learning,
learning, yes.
yeah, is to surround myself with those experts who know more than I do. So, you probably heard this before, never be the smartest person in the room.
Mhm.
And I often feel like I am in that position. It's like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I'm going to stay here until I understand it. So hiring people who know more than I do, and even sometimes with the students, the interns I'm working with, as an older person now, I don't know if you ever have to deal with this, but when I work with students or with young people who are in their 20s or 30s even, they'll
Mhm.
be talking about things that I have no idea what they're talking about. Especially like if they're like a lot of my team is into gaming and that kind of thing, and I don't know anything about that. I didn't, my kids didn't do gaming when they were young. But I love being around them and listening to how that topic brings them together. And I learn so much from them, even though I have nothing to contribute to the conversation. I can ask questions so that I have a better understanding, which helps spark their imagination of this thing that they already know, and I can learn from them. So I love that the role of expert shifts in conversations because based off the topic.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. I completely relate to the generational changes as well as how we all listen differently too. Is fascinating. Sometimes we don't know
Mm.
they're listening and they're truly listening, and they reflect on me and say, "Are you listening?" Yeah, I heard everything you said. Just thinking about what you're saying, not
Uh-huh.
nodding and everything. So,
Right,
yeah,
right, yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So kind of going forward a little bit more, a couple other questions on this journey here. If I asked you to pick three people in your business journey itself, what is it, that you're the most grateful for being there when your business is growing? Who might they be, and how did they help you? Kind of that, was there one or two pivotal people that came out of the surprised you and said a couple words and got you going? I'm
Mhm.
always looking at that question.
I think one of the most recent is a leadership coach that someone recommended to me. So her name's Erin Slater, and I met with her once a month for a year. And that was significant in helping build my confidence because she could see uh, what type of leader I was and speak into that. And I could bring her situations, because my dilemma was always how to deal with people or situations like that. So I could bring her a situation and she would not necessarily throw the answer at me, although she knew how to do that so well, but she would almost draw the answer out of me, like as far as that I already knew the answer. It's just how would you approach it? So I'm so grateful for her. Um, Another individual, actually two of them, would be the two co-founders that helped me start Marion Design Co. as faculty. So Herb and Luke were key people in, they had a huge vision. They're very different individuals from each other, as well as different from me in the way that we lead. But their ability to cast vision and inspire others, as well as let us all kind of be our own selves through the process of finding this thing. Their voices are always in the back of my head when I'm making a business decision, even though they're not here. Um, so I'm grateful for their input. And then my husband, he and I are very different. He is also a professor at Indiana Wesleyan in psychology, so he's a great sounding board for me.
Mm.
But he is my biggest fan, and so I can come home to him and lament with him or rejoice with him about what's happening, and he won't try and give me answers. He'll just be a support, and he'll be honest with me when I need good feedback. But I'm so grateful for him being willing to, kind of. I'm kind of chaotic in the way I make decisions, and I can be impulsive and say yes to things before I really thought through all the answers. And he doesn't judge me for that. Will joke about it, but he'll step into how to solve the problem after I've said yes to something. So I'm really grateful for him.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating. So, kind of like reflecting now in the future, where you think you might be looking at yourself in a couple of years. What do you think about the next 1 to 3 years? I mean, what's your number one point of growth, or maybe the challenges that you want to try to achieve?
Mhm. Well, since I started this business so late in my life, I'm 64 now,
Mhm.
and I imagine working till I'm 70. Um, I'm my decision making has everything to do with how to set it up for the next generation.
Mhm.
So I want this thing to continue because of the reason I started in the first place. The reason why I launched it as a business, or one of the reasons, was to provide jobs for people here in Marion, good professional jobs. And so I'm really pleased with the fact that people have moved to Marion so that they could work here, who may not have decided to come here before, and that we can pay them a fair wage. So I want to make sure that we're growing in that sense. I want to be ready to hand it off to the next person and make sure it's in a good place. But I also want, in my time, to see Marion flourish because we're in the early stages of revitalization. So I want to be a part of the good things that are happening and moving forward and make sure that those things are sustainable and aren't just a flash in the pan thing that happens this year and then they're gone next. I want to make sure that what we're doing here is sustainable.
Wow, yeah, those are some excellent goals to try to achieve, and it sounds like you have a long life ahead of you, so you'll get them all done. So, you get
I
it.
don't know.
It's all in the head.
Hmm. Hmm.
So speaking of that, Jim Rome, who happens to be a business coach legend in our industry, basically passed away just a couple of years ago. But he had made a comment that we become the average of the five people that we spend the most time with. As you think about that, what advice do you have for any business owner who might be trying to do it on their own?
Mm. That's a really good question. Um, and I think it's a challenge to to consider what on your own means, because oftentimes on your own is a perception of you doing it on your own.
Hmm.
Like oftentimes I see successful business owners and I only know that they're the owner and they're doing an amazing job. I don't know about the people surrounding them. So when I think about, okay, ask me the question again. I forgot what
Well,
it was.
you become the average of your five people that
Yeah,
you associate with. It's kind of your personality as well as your interest in life somewhat falls in that. But then we have some folks who basically say, when it comes to business, I'm going to just do it myself. I don't, I'm not
yeah.
going to engage much with others. Or you hire your own people, but you just, you know, choose to go the road of your own path.
Yeah. I think the thing I think of when I hear you ask that question is then realize if you're going to go at it on your own, that that's as far as you can get. Your own ability is as far as you can get.
Hmm.
And, you know, some people have a lot more ability to run businesses than others. So some will be farther than others, but there's a limit. And so if you want to take it beyond just that it's a profitable business, you have to have others involved in it. There have to be people who want you to succeed, who are benefiting because you succeed, um, and can see answers that you can't see. So I think, you know, I think to hold a business so tight to yourself that you can't share the success with others is lonely. You know, it's going to be lonely, even for the introvert, um, because success is only successful if you have someone to celebrate it with.
Thank you for sharing that because you're right. I look at it from a standpoint of the loneliness factor, and you're also not growing people around you. They don't get to experience your comments and your observations. So that's a good point too. So Wendy, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people in your life who've helped you along the journey. What would you like to say to them?
To the people who have helped me,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Um, that how grateful I am for their generosity of spirit,
Mhm.
that they're not holding their own talents or skills so tightly they weren't willing to share them with me. Because I feel like through the course of a day, the decisions I'm making are influenced by those people. I don't feel like I'm making those decisions on my own. And if I don't have something that they've said to me in the back of my head, I know I can go to them and ask them and seek them out. So I think just my gratefulness for their generosity. Um, Even if they didn't know where it was going to go, or even if they didn't think it was going to benefit them, I'm grateful that they just gave it away. And I want to be able to do that as well.
Well, again, nicely said. Thank you for giving us that perspective. Your perspective is your own personality, and that's wonderful. That's a wonderful opportunity that we have today to hear it. So it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today, and really thank you for being on my show. Thank you.
Of course, it's my privilege. It's nice to spend time with you, Mike.